Just starting with you, Nick, on some research you've been doing, some polling for the Menzies Research Centre to do with Anzac Day. Perhaps not a big surprise that people felt that with sporting events going ahead with crowds, Anzac Day should have similar permissions, but there were some restrictions still, I suppose, encouraged by people. It wasn't sort of a carte blanche approach given the health risk.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, overwhelmingly, people are saying, 90+% of people are saying we should have Anzac Day ceremonies as normal. And I think this reflects the fact that people think that if we're going to do things like sporting events, and, you know, we need to be consistent. And it also shows, of course, that Anzac Day still is deep in the hearts of every Australian. And they feel an instinctive need to recognise together the sacrifice that people have made. But interestingly, when we put it, the second question, which is in terms of the health impact, given that, you know, we need to take concerns over, there are concerns over health, should those ceremonies be unrestricted? And a majority of people think they should not be unrestricted, just by a narrow majority there, which I think shows that people are still very cautious about COVID-19, in part, I think, because of the reaction that we've seen from state governments in panicking and every time we get one case. But people are very conscious of that health thing, so they don't want Anzac Day to compromise health. But I think it shows Scott Morrison was right to insist we do have ceremonies, even if they are restricted in number.
James, I'll get your thoughts on this. I mean, I do think it's interesting. One of the great success stories of Australia, well, we all just started following the rules with pretty high adherence, but will people be overly cautious on the way out, if you like?
Yeah, look, sounds like pretty sensible research there from the Menzies Institute. And to be frank, I think the state government's handled this pretty well too. They've obviously revisited the situation, increased the cap. Hopefully, if the vets and personnel are comfortable enough to march, they should be allowed to march, and I, for one, will be up there to support them. I think this is a tremendous day of national unification and a commemoration. I actually would take it another step forward, Tom and Nick, and I think this is a candidate for another Australia Day, to be honest with you. I don't think it gets much more unifying and a moment of national commemoration and thought. So, look, you're right. I think there is that, obviously there is that degree of scepticism. We're talking about an older subset of the population when it comes to those marching. I understand there might be some caution. If they don't want to march, they shouldn't be forced to, obviously. But, that's the way we're going to be until we get this sort of vaccine finally rolled out, some point, well, October, November, December, or whenever it is now.
Yeah, I noticed you just threw in there a little possibility of Australia Day being Anzac Day. How would that work, though, with Indigenous Australians obviously wanting a day that really commemorates what happened to them in the aftermath as well, when Anzac Day is so much about that particular day and all the battles we've fought in since?
Oh, look, it's a bit of a James Cullen thought bubble, there's no doubt about it. I think it does tick a number of boxes, though, in terms of sections of the population, broad sections of the population, including Indigenous Australians who have served. I do accept, obviously, it's a bit of a, I suppose, a bit of a niche and a bit of a narrow focus in terms of commemorating war and Australian service at war. But, it's broad now, and that we're talking about men and women, and we're talking about serving at all places and the values that Australians hold dear as well. So I think it does tick a few boxes. I understand, though, I'm sure there'll be a debate about what replaces it. I'm not too sure. I think at some point we are going to be talking about replacements, Nick and Tom, for Australia Day. So it's just another idea.
Yeah, and look, I know Indigenous Australians served as well. Just briefly, your thoughts on this, Nick, before we move on?
Oh, I think the idea of combining the 2 days, apart from doing us out of one public holiday a year, I don't think that's going to win widespread acceptance. I mean, the polling shows that despite the noisy minority on one side of politics, the clear majority of people want Australia Day as Australia Day. I certainly do. It was the day I became an Australian citizen almost 30 years ago. I don't want that day changed.